Good afternoon, Muscatine, and welcome to Muscatine in Focus. I am the host, Mayor Brad Bark. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Daniel Nietzel. So thank you so much for being on, and if you just want to kind of talk to us about who you are and what you represent, that'd be great.
Yeah, I appreciate the invite, Mayor Bark. It's awesome to be here.
Yeah.
As you said, I'm the CEO and co-founder of a school safety company called Fighting Chance Solutions. We started around the year 2014, and I guess it really is more than just school safety. We do churches, synagogues, military facilities. I mean, it's really expanded, but it really started with a group of teachers at a local middle school, used to be West Middle School, and we all worked together to find a creative solution for a problem that, unfortunately we're here again, seems to be systemic in this country.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I see these devices right here, and I know many people probably know the story, but there's probably people that don't know about that. So if you could just share what made you think about creating this product?
Yeah, so like many teachers, we were actually going through active shooter training at the school. No students were there, but we went through about an hour and a half training, and then we did a hands-on demonstration of applying what they taught us. And one of the things that they talk about, especially after every active shooter situation, is there's new things that law enforcement learns. Okay, there were lessons learned after Columbine, Sandy Hook, Parkland, and now Uvalde. One of the lessons learned after Columbine was that if you hear gunshots, you need to stay out of the hallway. And most classroom doors only lock from the outside, because when they were built, there was really only 2 times a day the teacher would interact with that lock, right? When they're coming in the morning, balancing their coffee to unlock,
Yeah.
and then when they close the door at night and leave. So the idea of needing to lock your door in a hurry, you didn't need to have it cylindered on the other side, right? So really there was no way to lock the door, secure the door from the inside. The Columbine shooting, most of the murders happened in a kindergarten classroom, and the shooter had stepped out into the hallway to reload, and another teacher down the hall was frantically in the hallway trying to lock her door, and he zipped a few shots down the hallway, struck her. She didn't get her door locked. Now she's struck, classroom's open, and the door's still not secured.
Yeah.
So they talked about one of the things you can do is many classroom doors have what's called a door closer, and it's in the upper corner, and that you could take like a belt or a cord and kind of survival wrap it, and if you stop those arms from spreading, the door would not open.
Right.
So we did it. We did the training, and I was in there. It was like me and 5 other teachers, and I'm sitting up on a chair, wrapping it like the best I could. It was like, took me about 2 minutes, right? And the person who was imitating the active shooter was actually firing blanks, so it really got your heart running. He was shooting into a bucket. And so I tied it. We got into the corner. We hid, and we could hear him getting closer. Footstep, footstep, footstep. Then he got to our door, which was kind of eerie, and jiggle on the handle, and I'm like, it held. Look at that. I'm kind of high-fiving my teammates.
Yeah.
And then the second pull, cord sheared in half. He comes in. He goes, "You're dead. You're dead. You're dead. You're dead." And we're kind of like, well, that kind of stinks. I mean, that's not a solid solution, because first of all, it took us 2 minutes to do something that an event that usually lasts about 5 minutes. With the FBI stats, between 5 to 6 minutes, these shootings are over before the bad guys come in. Either the assailant kills themselves, or they are engaged with law enforcement. So I'm like, well, we're 1/3 of the way through an event like this. My wife was a kindergarten classroom teacher at the time. She had 2 doors. So now I'm thinking, well, if it took her 2 minutes, that's 4 minutes into a 5-minute, and she hasn't even addressed her students. So, and it didn't work very well, right? Like, I liked the idea, and the trainer did a great job of explaining it. But there's got to be a way to do that that's more effective and more efficient, right? And so that's where I came up with our first prototype.
I love it. Yeah.
This is made out of high-quality Rubbermaid container lid that I had in my basement. So I took the geometry of my door closer, and I hot glued it, and this was prototype number 1, and took it into school the next day, slid it on the door closer, and I had one of our counselors, who's now a co-owner, Edwin Colon, was there, and I had him pull from the outside. Just, not too hard, because this would have broken.
Yeah.
But to get the idea, the understanding of, okay, I think we're onto something, because it slid on in 1 second and it slid off, right? So then it was like, well, how do we get this into a stronger material so we can really start beta testing? And about 15 to 16 iterations later, we had the final product right here. So
That's cool.
yeah, so it was out of an abundance of need. And we never really intended to have this be a company. So there's a tie-in with MCC about how this all worked. It was just kind of a crazy set of events that kind of put us on the national stage back in 2014. But we really just planned on continuing teaching, kind of carpetbagging in the summer, and selling this thing, on our summer break. And then it just exploded overnight.
I was going to say, looking at this picture that's up here, first of all, indestructible, one-step activation. So you mentioned that it takes time to wrap a cord. If you have a cord that's there, right?
Right.
To wrap around. It says 2 seconds. Just put it in right away. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing, too, that I think is pretty amazing is usually a lot of doors, education, buildings, things like that, they have to be permitted, right? Mm-hmm. There's no permit modifications at all to this. It's just put the sleeve on and
yeah,
there you go.
Well, this is what was awesome. Like, this is what got me excited as a teacher.
I love it.
Like, working with my students was like what are the constraints, and then how do we solve the problem within those constraints? And one of the constraints was absolutely right. I had an idea of like, well, I'm just going to get U-brackets and drill them into my door frame, and then kind of create like some sort of medieval, like they would, like a piece of wood that you put there, mm-hmm. The gate, they would stop the gate from going down. And then they were like, well, you can't so much as put a screw into that door because you void the fire warranty, right? So I'm like, okay. So it's like, how do you balance effectiveness, timeliness with the constraints of California? That's probably the state we sell them the most in. Has some of the most strict building codes because of earthquakes. So, we sell a ton of these because no modifications and all that. So it was kind of fun to work through that process with the guys.
That's amazing. So, who helped you make these, number one?
Right.
And are you guys making them specifically, or do you have them coming in from somewhere?
Yeah, good question.
Because I love the fact that teachers kind of come, there's a need for safety, number one. And number two, there's just a need for quick, easy, affordable, and I see that your website's up here too, but yeah, please.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, so again, it was a process to have these made. 5 out of the 6 owners all worked at the same school. So it was very organic in the beginning. Like our art teacher is one of the co-owners. He did all the patent drawings,
cool.
Which was kind of fun. He's got his work published. Everyone kind of contributed in their own way. And then we brought on my old former neighbor, who was a tradesman, who did all of the welding for it and stuff to do the initial prototypes. So it was one of those things where Carl was like, his name's Carl Negus. We offered him payment, which we didn't have much money at the time, mm-hmm. or we could say, hey, or you can have equity in this company that we're going to form. And he took the equity, which was a smart decision.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's
so
great.
They were made in Muscatine, Fabricators Plus, and then it's no longer an option. And we actually have them made in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, by a former Muscatine resident, Daryl Soderman. So we always try to keep like a Muscatine connection with everything we do, our printing, everything. And so on the big orders, we drop ship from Fort Lauderdale just directly to the schools. And the smaller orders, we fill out here at our headquarters out of mailboxes and Parcel Depot. So we try to keep about 1,500 units on hand.
Yeah, how cool is that? Now you have a depot to send everything out.
Shipping baron now.
Right,
yeah.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, so talk to me about these, the website that's up here that Chad has.
Yeah, so again, this was fun. This was all part of kind of that organic process. This is probably website 4.0, but the original one were all of us meeting on the weekends, at nights, learning how to code, learning how to build a website, which would end up crashing when we first launched,
Sure.
Which will be the next story we tell. But yeah, this is the website's pretty user-friendly. We do not sell on Amazon. We sell directly through us. We want hands on every order. We want to be interacting with customers. When you call us, you're always going to get a human voice. We deal with small districts, we deal with large districts. We're in all 50 states, we're in multiple countries, and only growing. So this is a little beefier website than what the original looked like, but this one can take the volume and fluctuations in traffic a lot better than what we were doing before.
Very good. So you have the sleeve, and then I see another item up there called...
Yeah.
That's cool.
So it's called the Rampart. So again, problem solving, right?
Yeah.
So initially, all we had was the sleeve, and the sleeve is for outward swinging doors, which present a whole different set of problems. It's much easier to barricade an inward swinging door,
Okay.
like your front door that pulls in, And so what we were going to do, we got a big deal with the Marines at an Illinois base, and they wanted us to come demo. And I said, we'll buy the door, test the sleeve until failure if you want. And they did, and they were very impressed with the sleeve. They go, but we also have inward swinging doors, so what are you guys going to do with that? So we were looking at repping a normal bar like you get at Menards for Master Lock, like $25. We're like, we can do distribution, and we'll make $5 off of it and upsell it a little bit.
Yeah.
So we take it there, and here's mistake number one. Always try what you're going to use or sell before you actually try to sell it. So he props it up against the door, and he puts a shoulder in, and barely, and the thing collapses, it shears, and I'm like, oh my God, like we can't sell this in good conscience. This is bad security, So back to the drawing board. And so we developed the Rampart. It's the strongest door bar in the market by almost 2.5 times. We've had it independently tested. I think it withstands over 660 pounds of force. And it's very basic. Like, one of the issues with the Master Lock was it allowed you to change the angle of the foot. Well, if you know anything about basic geometry, you know there are stronger triangles and there are weaker triangles. So we force the customer, when they extend it out, that foot is going to land so that we create that 30, 60, 90 triangle, that right triangle between the floor and the door. So the Rampart is kind of the hypotenuse, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was one thing. And then we didn't use a push button. We do a through pin through our Rampart, which, it's easier to have a push button to quickly adjust, but really you want to adjust it once and you should never have to adjust the bar again. So why not have a through pin? And then we just played around with materials and the rubber and things like that. So we then created, our wives were very patient because they did not want us going back into product design, but then we created the Rampart. And we've continued to add things over the years, but our biggest sellers are the Rampart for inward swinging doors. Those can be residential. My parents use them on their doors every night. We use them. And then we have the sleeve for outward swinging doors.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And then I know that you were talking earlier about just getting the information out to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Channel 6, I believe you mentioned that at one point. If you want to talk about that.
Yeah. So everyone's like, well, how did people find out about you? Yeah. This group of middle school teachers from Muscatine, Iowa. And what happened was it all started out here at MCC, June 9th, 2014. And Buzz Albee, who used to be the president, encouraged us, because we're all former MCC grads, that's where we started, to, first of all, he wanted to be the first buyer, so he wanted this to be a demo site, and then he's like, you should have a press conference. And I was totally against it. I thought it was pretentious. I'm like, nobody knows who we are. We're not Apple launching the new iPhone. Why are we doing a product launch? You know what I mean? It just seemed, I don't know. I felt like we had to earn it first before we were doing a press conference. But anyways, it was a Friday, and we personally called like NBC or Channel 6, Channel 8, Channel 4, and Fox. Hey, we're having this press conference. Do you guys want to come? Everyone's like, yeah, we'll probably send somebody down. But we knew, like, if there was a barn fire in Silvis, they weren't coming. Like, we needed things to fall the perfect way to get all those places to come down to this press conference, right?
Yeah.
And so there wasn't a barn fire in Silvis, and it was a rainy day, so people didn't have an excuse to go to the golf course. And we got all 4 major networks down. So I'm giving this press conference and talking about the need and things like that. And then as it's happening, as I'm talking, people's phones kind of start lighting up. Well, there's an active shooter event that's happening simultaneous with this press conference out in Washington State. And it was like people had this realization of, they knew this was going to be the top story for the night, this shooting, and oh my gosh, and now we're actually in a school. A lot of people haven't been to a school for a while that were in that room, and it's kind of like, okay, yeah, what if I was in this room and there was somebody firing bullets, and now these teachers have something that can help save lives. So the press conference wraps, and we thought we might be a puff piece after sports. And so we tune in, and of course the lead-in was that shooting. That was the major national story. And then they go, but then there's this group of teachers out of Muscatine, Iowa that are doing something about it. So we were like the second story. So we were like, oh my gosh, that's awesome, And but didn't think much of it. I think we posted the NBC, the KWQC article on our Facebook page, right? Mm-hmm. Let it be. Wake up the next morning, jump on Facebook, And I'm just, as we all do, slowly open the computer, get the coffee going, and I click on our Facebook page, and I see the article had over 1 million shares, and I about spit my coffee out.
Oh, wow.
And
a
then,
million shares.
Yeah, and then Tony Tone's calling, and he's like, we need you to come in and do an interview on the radio. Like, this is crazy. And I'm like, and then someone from Goldman Sachs called, and they're talking about angel investing, and I'm like, I don't know anything about any of that. Like, what is happening? And this is kind of the early days of, like, going viral, but we definitely were going viral, and it was, like, the craziest 2 weeks of my life. I ended up flying out to Hollywood to do daytime TV. I had one of the guys just booking radio interviews, TV interviews. We had TV trucks parked out of our office, which was my house. And our office was my dining room table. Our company phone was my cell phone, which is why I walk around with two. I promise I'm not selling drugs. I get that a lot.
Right, yeah.
Oh, two phones.
Two phones.
No, I have to keep that original number because in our a lot of our first articles, it was 563-506-3527.
Gotcha.
My personal number. And so we had to portage that over and keep that. But I need to keep things separate from personal life. But yeah, my phone was blowing up. Interviews. We didn't have a price set. We didn't even know we had to have like a tax ID number set up so that we could sell. So here's how we determine the price. We're sitting around. It's like a long day. We're sitting out on my front porch and just got done with the last interview. It was probably 8 o'clock at night. And it's all 5 of us crammed, all 6 of us crammed on the porch. And we're smoking a cigar and having a glass of scotch and just kind of like, oh my God, is this really happening? And like, we got to sell this. Like, what's the price? So us being naive, we didn't think about shipping charges, manufacturing. We just started throwing out numbers. One guy's like $120. One guy's like $25. I think we settled on $65 was the original price. And it's gone up since then because once you figure out business, you understand there's a lot that goes into it. But it's just kind of a wild story. And then we just launched. And like, I had people calling me. I used to play rugby here in town with Pearl City. I had guys calling me from Australia saying, mate, you're on the news over here. Like, it's wild. You know, I'm like, it was like a rocket ship.
It was on the news in Australia.
Oh, yeah. And like, just some of these publications, I'm like, I use this as a resource when I taught social studies. Like, I'm on Discovery News, Washington Post, some of this stuff that I'm like, I just never dreamed. And it was just a whirlwind. And that's kind of how we started. And so
that's quite the story.
Yeah, I had to quit teaching, and someone had to run the business. And then we've learned a lot over the last 8 years. And then we just, unfortunately, as these events continue to happen,
right,
we kind of know what to expect, and we know what to build up and gear up for. And but yeah, it's been interesting.
You know, though, it's nice because there's a solution.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm sure there's many, but this is a solution. And I know that there's a video that you'd like to share as well.
If Chad wants to pull that up, I was just to put a bow on it. I think to this day that KWQC story is still their most viewed story in history, because what happened was when they do these local shots, they can spread them out to all their affiliates, and all the affiliates nationwide for CBS, ABC, NBC picked them up, but NBC's shot through the roof, and then international picked it up. So like that's why it.
That is so cool. Wow. So do you have the original Facebook post, like the original one, and how many shares does it have?
I haven't looked. I don't even know if it's still up. I don't know.
Oh, that'd be so interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. And it's hard too because then they can track the metrics better of like shares of shares. The original post, I don't even know how that would perform at this point. You know, just to see how it all went, where it went.
That's pretty cool. Well, very good. Yeah, we'll check this out and then we'll talk in just afterwards as well.
You know, we were all kind of nervous and not knowing where the shooters was. And that was when I remembered that I had that sleeve. We did feel a lot secure with this, in that there was no way he was going to be able to come in. You know, even if he shot the lock off, the way this sits up on top, I can guarantee you there was no way he was going to be able to come in.
I have to say, just the fact that it takes X amount of time to get a rope, wrap it around. You could like, not that you want to run out in the hallway, but I mean, you'd be able to like put up so many of these sleeves in a really quick time frame compared to. But this is amazing, and I'm so glad that you guys came together. You saw a need. There's a focus on safety for our children that go to school, and then your children that go to school too. But just that knowing that they could be safe at that point. So
Yeah, you touched on it. I think that there's a lot of debate, discussion, things like that. People try to pull me into debates about different elements of active school shootings and things like that. I just tell them I have no interest in discussing that because I can't do anything about that. That's at a higher level than me. I'm doing what I can do. We're doing what we can do on our level, and that's really what I try to keep the discussion at. Because we can talk in circles about lots of different things, but that was always the thing. Is like we can do something about this. This is something pretty simple that we can do.
No, that's great. Well, in closing remarks, is there anything you'd like to share to your audience?
I guess again, I want to thank Muscatine. This has been a great town. We needed a lot of help in the beginning. We got a lot of help from individuals in the community that gave us confidence to launch this business. There were a lot of ups and downs, but this town's always been great to us. It's a great place to raise a family. I think we've got some great things that are continuing to happen, and I'm excited for the future. And I'm excited to be a part of that, and I'm excited that our company can be a part of that too. So I just appreciate the invite, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, thank you so much, Daniel. And next we have Jeff Osborne, second ward council member, who's going to talk about everything going on in his ward. And again, I really urge everybody, if there's any questions, anything you'd like to see on the show, to please reach out to myself, bbark@muscatineio.gov. And we'll definitely get that on the show. So thank you so much. And I just want to remember everybody to be your best, and thank you so much for watching.